I never thought my life would end up in a place like that. A nursing home. One of those buildings that always smells like bleach and warm soup, where the walls are painted soft colors to make up for the fact that everyone inside is slowly disappearing. I used to drive past places like that when I was younger and think, Lord, please don't let me ever end up in one. And yet, there I was. And the person who put me there was my own son. Maybe that's the part that still stings the most, the fact that it wasn't strangers, or doctors, or life forcing me there. It was him. My baby. The child I carried for 9 long months and raised with everything I had. The child I worked double shifts for, prayed over every night, worried about every single day. The child who used to hold my hand so tight in crowded places like he was afraid the world might steal me away. If someone had told younger me that this same boy would one day sign papers to tuck me away like an old piece of furniture, I would have laughed in their face. But life has a way of showing you truths you don't want to see. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing. Betrayal rarely does. It slips in slow, quiet. At first, it just feels like distance. A late phone call here, a forgotten visit there. Then excuses. Then avoidance. Then nothing. Distance turns into silence, and silence turns into absence. And before you know it, your whole world shrinks down to a room someone else picked out for you. Back when I was still living in my own home, the same little house I bought when my son, Michael, was 10, things were different. Oh, I loved that place. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. 2 bedrooms, a porch swing, and a kitchen that held more memories than any person could count. I could close my eyes and still hear the sound of pots clattering on Sunday mornings, smell the cornbread baking in the oven, hear little Michael giggling as he tried to steal pieces before dinner. Life felt good then. Simple. Full. But time eats away at things slowly. My knees started giving out first. Then my eyesight blurred. Then my breath became shorter with every passing winter. I still tried to keep going, moving through the house like I always had, but my body was tired. I could feel it in the mornings, especially, that heavy ache that told me I wasn't as strong as I used to be. Michael would visit back then. Not often, but enough. He'd bring groceries sometimes, help me carry laundry upstairs, fix the porch light. But he always seemed rushed, like he was checking off a chore. His eyes never lingered on me the way they used to. He used to look at me like I was his whole world. Now he looked past me, like he was seeing the rest of his life waiting behind me. It got worse after he got married. His wife, Jasmine, was polite. That's the nicest word I can use for her. She smiled, but her eyes never did. She hugged me, but her arms stayed stiff. And every time she came over, she'd do this little thing. She'd look around my house and wrinkle her nose, like she was smelling something she didn't like. One day, I caught her wiping down my kitchen counters with disinfectant when she thought I wasn't watching. As if I didn't keep my home clean. As if age meant dirty. I said nothing. Sometimes silence is the only dignity you have left. The talk started soon after. Little hints dropped here and there. Mom, maybe it's time to think about getting some help around the house. Mom, the stairs are dangerous for you now. Mom, I worry about you living alone. I knew exactly whose voice was stuffed inside those sentences. It wasn't his. It was hers. I didn't want help. I didn't want strangers poking into my life, telling me what to do. I had lived long enough to earn the right to decide how I wanted to live out the rest of my days. But every time I objected, every time I tried to assert myself, Michael's eyes would glaze over like he wasn't even hearing me. Then came the fall. It was nothing dramatic, just a slip in the bathroom. I didn't pass out. I didn't break anything. But I couldn't get up on my own. I lay there on the floor for almost an hour, staring at the ceiling, feeling every year of my age settle into my bones. When Michael arrived, he panicked. Not because he was scared for me. No, I could see the annoyance in his face. The inconvenience. And that was the beginning of the end. Suddenly he was calling doctors behind my back, whispering with Jasmine in corners, filling out paperwork without telling me. I remember sitting on my sofa, watching him hold forms in his hands. His signature looked so bold at the bottom, like he didn't even hesitate. "Mom," he said, not looking me in the eye, "this is for the best. You'll get better care there." There. He wouldn't even say the words nursing home. I begged him to reconsider. Not yelled, not cried, begged. Quietly. Desperately. I told him I could get a home nurse. I told him I'd stay on one floor. I told him I'd do anything. But he had already decided. Or really, she had. The day he drove me there, I stared out the window the whole time. The world looked blurry through my tired eyes, like it was moving too fast for me to keep up. When we pulled into the parking lot, I felt something inside me break, a soft, invisible crack that no one else could hear. He carried my suitcase like he was doing me a favor, walked me inside, signed the papers, kissed my forehead, said he'd visit every week. He didn't. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into almost a year. And in that time I shrank. Not physically, though age will do that to you, but inside. Something in me that used to burn bright, something that used to fight, something that used to feel like mine. It dimmed. The staff was kind. The residents were sweet. But kindness is not family. Sweetness is not love. And no matter how many soft blankets or warm meals they gave me, it never replaced the life I once had. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I had done to deserve being forgotten. Wondering what mistakes I made as a mother that led my child, my only child, to put me away like an old photo album he didn't have room for anymore. But then something happened. Something small, but powerful. One afternoon, a young nurse named Alicia came into my room. She had a smile that lit up her whole face. She brought me my medication and asked, "Miss Loretta, do you mind if I sit and talk a while?" And I said yes. That conversation lasted hours. And then days. And then weeks. She reminded me of my younger self, gentle, patient, full of sunshine. Little by little, she became the closest thing I had to family. Not by blood, but by heart. And somewhere along the way, I realized something important. Michael hadn't put me in that nursing home because he loved me. He put me there because I was no longer convenient. And I stopped waiting for his visits. Stopped hoping he'd remember my birthday. Stopped believing that he'd suddenly turn back into the son I raised. Instead, I started writing again. Letters. Notes. Memories. Especially memories. The kind no one could take away. And buried deep inside my drawer, the drawer Michael never cared to open, was my will. My real will. And one day he would find it. And the world he thought he understood would flip upside down. Because he didn't know a thing about who I'd chosen to leave my life to. And when he found out, Lord help that boy. Because that would be the day he'd finally remember the mother he threw away. The thing about living in a nursing home is that you start to measure time differently. Not by days or weeks, but by who doesn't show up. Every morning, the hallways fill with the slow shuffle of walkers, wheelchairs rolling softly, nurses greeting everyone like sunshine trying to warm up tired bones. And every afternoon, 1 or 2 residents get visitors. Children bringing flowers, grandchildren bringing drawings, maybe a husband bringing chocolates if he's still alive. And the rest of us? We sit by the window and watch cars pull in and pull out, waiting to see if a familiar face might step out of one of them. I used to do that too at first. Every Sunday, around noon, I'd sit in the same chair by the window facing the driveway. I'd wear my nicest sweater, the blue one Michael bought me for Christmas years ago. I'd fix my hair, put on a little lipstick, and sit there telling myself, he's coming today. I know he is. But every Sunday came and went. Every car left again. And my chair stayed empty beside me. After the 6th week, I stopped dressing up. After the 10th, I stopped looking at the window. After the 12th, I stopped telling myself he was coming. But I never stopped hurting. One evening, I found myself awake at 3 a.m., The hall's quiet except for the soft beeping from someone's room down the hall. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how everything changes when people think you're no longer useful. How the same hands that once clapped for your accomplishments, hugged you after school, reached for you during nightmares, could one day sign your life away with a pen that didn't even tremble. It makes you wonder if love only lasts as long as you're convenient. It was around that time that Alicia began visiting more often. She was assigned to my wing, but she always went above what she needed to do. Some nurses treated their job like a checklist. Pills, water, chart, move on. Not Alicia. She talked. She listened. She remembered things about me. Little things I hadn't told anyone else in years. "Miss Loretta," she'd say, her voice soft like a warm blanket, "tell me again about your garden. What was your favorite flower?" And I'd smile. Because no one had asked about my garden since before Michael stopped caring. "Marigolds," I'd tell her. "Always marigolds. They reminded me of sunshine, the kind you grow yourself." One afternoon, she surprised me. She walked into my room carrying a small pot with a single marigold sprouting out of black soil. The petals were still young, curled slightly at the edges, but the color was bright, a bold yellow, full of life. She set it on my windowsill and said, "Thought you could use a little sunshine of your own." I cried. Not loud, not dramatic. Just soft tears slipping down my cheeks, the kind that come from someone remembering who you used to be before the world forgot. After that, I started talking to her about things I had never said out loud before. My dreams. My regrets. My fears that I had failed as a mother somehow. And she'd shake her head every time I said that. "Miss Loretta," she'd whisper, "you didn't fail nobody. People choose who they want to be. Even your son." But still, in the quiet corners of my heart, I wondered. Months passed that way. Quiet mornings, gentle afternoons, long nights. The life I lived before felt like a fading photograph tucked inside a book no one opened anymore. Until one Thursday morning, something unexpected happened. I woke up to find a man standing outside my door holding a clipboard. He wasn't staff, I could tell that right away. Too stiff. Too uncomfortable. Too out of place. When he saw me looking, he gave a tight smile and knocked on my doorframe. "Mrs. Lawson?" I nodded slowly. "My name is Mr. Porter. I'm the facility administrator. I'm here regarding some paperwork related to your estate." That word, estate. It was like someone had whispered a secret too close to my ear. No one here knew anything about my estate. Not because I was hiding money, but because no one had ever asked. "Is there a problem?" I asked quietly. He cleared his throat. "Your son called. He wants access to some documents you have on file. He says it's important." My heart didn't skip a beat. It dropped straight through me. My son. Calling. Asking about my documents. The man continued awkwardly. He asked if the facility keeps copies of residents' wills, or any financial records. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how predictable it all was. Not a word from him in nearly a year, and suddenly he wanted to know about my will. I kept my face calm, though inside something old and bitter stirred. "I don't have anything filed here," I said softly. "Tell him that." Mr. Porter nodded. "I will." He left, and I sat there staring at the door long after it shut. Something inside me, something I thought had died, started to wake up. A quiet strength. A spine I hadn't felt in years. A fire I thought life had snuffed out. Michael didn't want to know how I was doing. He didn't want to visit. He didn't want to check on my health. He didn't want to hear my voice. He wanted my will. I knew exactly what had happened. He must have gotten himself in trouble. Money trouble, job trouble, house trouble. He must have realized that maybe, just maybe, the old woman he locked away might have a few coins left to her name. And he was right. I did. I had more than a few. But he didn't know the most important part. He didn't know that I had already written my will long before he pushed me into that building. He didn't know who I had chosen. He didn't know what I had witnessed in his absence. He didn't know the love I had found in people who owed me nothing. He didn't know he wasn't in it anymore. The next morning, I asked Alicia to bring me my small wooden box from the bottom drawer of my nightstand. She set it on my lap gently. "You okay, Miss Loretta?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, baby. Just time to check on something." Inside that box was my will, folded, sealed, written by hand in ink that had dried into a promise. And next to it, a blank envelope. For the new will I knew I had to write soon. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of truth. Because the people who show up when you have nothing left, not money, not strength, not usefulness, those are the people who deserve pieces of your life. And as I held that box close to my chest, a small, tired smile spread across my face. Because the day my son discovered the truth would be the day he finally understood what he'd lost. And Lord, was he not ready for that lesson? I always thought getting old meant getting quieter, slowing down, letting the world move on while you sat with your memories like old friends. I never expected getting old to feel like being erased little by little, like someone was turning down the volume on my life. But that's what it felt like in that place. The walls were soft colors, the windows wide, the staff gentle, but nothing could hide the truth. I didn't belong there. Not yet. Not like this. Not abandoned. Still, something in me had changed after that visit from the administrator. When you realize someone wants something from you only because they believe you're too helpless to protect it, it wakes up a part of you that refuses to go quietly. And I didn't. Not anymore. A week later, something unexpected happened. It was a small thing, really. But small things can shift entire lives if you're paying attention. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Rain tapped softly against my window, the kind of rain that makes the air smell like wet earth and old memories. I was knitting, slowly, clumsily, but enough to keep my hands moving, when Alicia slipped into my room holding an envelope. "Miss Loretta," she said gently, "you got mail." I froze. Mail. For me. No one sent me mail anymore. I took it with trembling hands. The envelope was crisp, new, with a return address printed neatly in the corner. A lawyer's office. A place I had never seen before. "What's this?" I whispered. Alicia gave me a sympathetic look. "Your son came by this morning." The world tilted for a moment. He came by. After all these months. After all those empty Sundays? Before I could ask anything, Alicia continued, he didn't come inside. Didn't even ask how you were. Just handed this to the front desk and left. Something inside me sank and hardened at the same time. He didn't want to see me. He wanted access to something. I slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a formal request from an attorney, asking for documents related to my estate, my medical records, my financial arrangements. It was written with so many polite words it almost sparkled, but the meaning was sharp as a knife. My son was preparing for something. Something involving money. Something involving me. Alicia sat beside me, watching my hands tremble as I read. "What does it say?" she asked softly. "It says my son is asking questions." I folded the paper carefully, like folding a wound before it bleeds too much. Questions he should have asked years ago. She stayed quiet, respectful, waiting for me to say more. But I couldn't. Not yet. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain. It pattered softly against the window like fingers tapping, reminding me I hadn't been forgotten entirely by the world. Just forgotten by the one person who wasn't supposed to forget me. I wondered what Michael was thinking. Whether guilt finally caught up to him. Whether his wife was pushing him to secure his inheritance. Whether he was desperate. Or whether he was simply curious how much money the mother he abandoned might leave behind. Whatever the reason, I knew one thing. He wasn't thinking about me as a person. just as a possession. The next morning, I asked Alicia to help me request a meeting with the facility social worker. She looked surprised, but she nodded. Of course, Miss Loretta. Anything you want. The meeting was set for the following day. When I sat down in that small office, a tidy room with beige walls and a little diffuser humming in the corner, the social worker smiled warmly. How can I help you today? I rested my cane against the chair and folded my hands. I need access to my personal files, I said calmly. My financial papers. My will. She blinked. Your will. Do you plan to update it? Yes, I said, looking her straight in the eye. I do. She nodded quickly, though I could tell she wasn't expecting that answer. Well, of course. We can arrange for your documents to be brought here. Do you have an attorney to assist? I'll need one, I replied. And I'd like Alicia present when they come. Alicia, who had accompanied me to the meeting, touched my shoulder with her warm hand. I'm right here, Miss Loretta, she whispered. And that was the moment I knew. I wasn't alone. Not really. The papers arrived 2 days later. My old will sat inside the folder, its envelope a little worn around the edges. I opened it slowly. The handwriting was mine. Neat, careful, written at a time when the world still made sense. In that old will, I had left everything to my son. Everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd saved. Every dollar from the life I'd carved out with hard work and quiet sacrifice. But that version of me, that mother, that woman, she still believed her son loved her. She still believed he'd be there when she needed him. She still believed he'd never abandon her. I folded that will and set it aside. I need to create a new one, I said. The lawyer they brought in was a kind man in his 60s, soft voice, gentle eyes. He sat across from me in my little nursing home room, listening to my story in quiet, heavy silence. Mrs. Lawson, he said softly when I finished, I'm sorry. Truly. I nodded once, breathing slowly. I don't want pity, I said. I want clarity. Of course. Who would you like your inheritance to go to? I looked at Alicia, who sat in the chair by the window, her hands folded nervously in her lap. She didn't know. She had no idea what I was about to say. But I did. I looked back at the lawyer and spoke clearly, my voice steady as steady could be. I want to leave everything to her. Alicia gasped. Her hand flew to her chest. Miss Loretta, she whispered, eyes filling with tears. You showed up, I said. You cared. You treated me like a human being when my own son treated me like a burden. That's love. And love deserves something back. The lawyer nodded solemnly. Alicia cried softly. And for the first time in years, I felt in full control of my own life. But the world wasn't done twisting. Not yet. 3 weeks later, everything exploded. It started with a phone call. Loud. Urgent. A nurse pounded on my door and said, Miss Loretta, your son is here. My heart fell into a deep, cold silence. Michael had come. After all this time. Not to visit. Not to apologize. Not to love me. He came because he'd found out about the will. And the look on his face when he stormed into my room. Lord help me. It told me he wasn't ready for the truth he was about to learn. Not one bit. I knew something terrible was about to happen the moment Michael walked through that door. A mother always knows. Even if her child is grown, even if decades have passed, even if love has thinned into something else entirely, you still recognize the storm in their eyes. And Michael's eyes were full of thunder. He didn't knock. Didn't greet me. Didn't even look at me the way a son looks at his mother. He slammed the door behind him so hard the picture on my wall rattled. What is this? He shouted, holding a stack of papers in his hand. My updated will. My whole body went cold. A nurse tried to step in behind him, but he waved her off with a harsh, I'm talking to my mother. The way he said those words stung. Like they were just a formality. Like he needed to say them out loud to remind himself I still meant something to him. I looked at him quietly, letting him burn through his anger before I tried to speak. But Alicia was already there, standing beside me, her arms folded protectively. Her presence alone gave me strength. "Michael," I said softly. "Don't Michael me." He waved the will in the air like a weapon. "What is this nonsense? What are you doing leaving everything to some nurse, some stranger?" Alicia stiffened, but I gently touched her hand, calming her. "Michael," I said again, "sit down." "No," he snapped. "I want answers." I took a slow breath, steadying my voice. "You left me here, Michael." "I didn't leave you," he yelled, pacing the room. "I put you somewhere safe. You needed help, you needed care." "I needed my son," I said quietly. That stopped him. He froze mid-step, eyes locking onto mine, anger flickering, for just a moment, into something else. Something softer. Something he quickly crushed. "You're being dramatic," he spat. "Jasmine and I, we have lives, jobs, responsibilities. We can't just drop everything because you slipped one time." "One time," I repeated, disbelief washing over me. "That wasn't a slip, Michael. That was the moment I realized I wasn't safe living alone. I needed help. I needed family. I needed love." He rolled his eyes. "You're in a nursing home, not a prison." I looked around my tiny room. 4 beige walls, a single window, a bed that wasn't mine, a dresser someone else picked. I thought about my house filled with memories, about my garden, about Sunday mornings and slow afternoons in the home I built. "It feels like a prison when the door closes and no one comes back," I whispered. Silence. For the first time, Michael hesitated. His mouth tightened. His fingers clenched around the papers. Then he looked directly at Alicia. "So she gets everything. Because she visits you. Because she pretends to care." Alicia's eyes widened with hurt, but she didn't speak. She didn't have to. "She showed up," I said firmly. "You didn't." His jaw clenched. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "This is insane," he muttered. "You're not thinking straight. You're confused. You're old." "Don't you finish that sentence," I said sharply. Michael froze. My voice had snapped like a whip, stronger and colder than he'd heard in years. "I may be old," I said quietly, "but I am not confused. My mind is clear. Clear enough to see who loved me, and who didn't." His face twisted with frustration. "So what? You're punishing me," he threw back. "Because I put you here? That's why you're giving everything to her?" "No," I said, shaking my head. "I'm not punishing you, Michael. I'm protecting my peace. Something you stopped doing a long time ago." He looked at me like the words physically hit him. I continued, voice trembling but steady. "You didn't come see me. You didn't call. You didn't check on me. Not once. For almost a year, Michael. A year." He swallowed hard. "I was busy." "So was I replied. "Busy waiting. Waiting for my son to remember I existed." The truth settled heavy in the air. He turned away, rubbing his forehead like the weight of everything was suddenly too much. Then, quieter, he said, "Mom, I didn't think I didn't think it mattered." I blinked slowly. "Me not mattering to you is the whole problem." Alicia quietly moved to the corner to give us space, but she didn't leave. I was grateful for that. I needed someone in that room who saw me, really saw me. Michael took a few steps closer, staring down at the will in his hands. His voice softened, but it wasn't kindness, it was desperation. "Mom, I need that money." There it was. The truth. Raw, unfiltered, ugly. "What happened?" I asked gently. He hesitated, bit his lip, looked away. But eventually he answered. I made some bad investments, he muttered. The house. Jasmine's business. We owe money, okay? A lot of money. If you leave everything to her, he shot a glare at Alicia, I'm screwed. I stared at him. This was the moment a mother imagines her child will show remorse, regret, heartbreak. But instead, he came looking for rescue, not forgiveness. I leaned back in my chair, my breath steady, my heart strangely calm. Michael, I said softly, you didn't come to see if I was alive. You came to see if my money could save you. His eyes flashed. So what? You'd rather give it to someone who isn't family. That made me chuckle, a sad, tired sound. Family. I echoed. Family is the one who checks on you when you're sick. Family is the one who sits with you when you're lonely. Family is the one who shows up when the world forgets you. I nodded toward Alicia. She did all that. You didn't. Michael's anger cracked then, not into softness or regret, but into panic. You can't do this, he said, voice shaking. I'm your son. Yes, I said. You are. And nothing can change that. Not even this. He looked confused. So I continued. But being someone's child doesn't mean you inherit their life, or their love, or their legacy. Those things are earned, Michael. And you didn't earn this. He sank into the chair across from me, head in his hands. Please, Mom, he whispered. I need you to change it back. I watched him, really watched him, for a long moment. The son I raised. The man he became. The distance between the two. And then I said something I never imagined saying. It's too late. His head jerked up. Mom. It's too late, I repeated gently. Not for you. But for who you used to be to me. A tear rolled down his cheek. He tried to wipe it away quickly, like he didn't want me to see. But I did. And for a moment, just a moment, the boy he once was flickered in his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. And maybe he meant it. Maybe he didn't. But the words came too late to heal what he'd broken. The truth was already written on paper. And in my heart. You may leave, I said softly. He stood slowly, moving like the weight of the world sat on his shoulders. At the door he turned back, eyes bloodshot. Mom, I didn't think you'd ever stop loving me. I smiled sadly. Oh, Michael, I never stopped loving you. I paused. But I did stop waiting for you. He left in silence. Alicia closed the door behind him and hurried to my side, tears shining in her eyes. Are you okay? She whispered. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. Yes, I said. For the first time in a long time. I truly am. But the story wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Because love, regret, and blood ties have a way of twisting back into your life. And Michael. He wasn't finished fighting for what he thought he deserved. Not at all. After Michael left that day, the room felt strangely still. Not empty. Just still, like the air itself was taking a long breath after holding too much for too long. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, staring at the door he'd walked through, wondering how we got here. How a lifetime of love could be reduced to a single desperate conversation about money. Alicia pulled the chair close to my bedside and sat quietly with me. She didn't speak, didn't ask, didn't push. She just sat. And sometimes that's the kindest thing a person can do. Just exist beside you while your heart rearranges itself. Miss Loretta, she finally whispered. I know that hurt. I didn't hide the truth. It did, I said softly. But I think I needed to hear those words just as much as he needed to say them. We didn't talk much more that night. She helped me get settled, tucked my blanket under my feet the way my mother used to, and turned off the lights. As she stepped out, I whispered, Alicia, thank you for loving me when I felt unlovable. She turned back with tears glistening in her eyes. You've always been lovable. Someone just forgot how to show you. Sleep didn't come easy that night. My mind replayed Michael's face over and over. The anger, the panic, the crack in his voice when he realized the consequences of his choices. A part of me wanted to reach out, to pull him close like I used to when he was a boy with scraped knees and broken toys. A part of me wanted to say, "I'll fix it, baby. I'll make it better." But mothers aren't supposed to fix their grown children forever. Something breaks in the universe when they try. The next morning, the whispers began. It started with 2 residents outside my door, talking softly as they passed. Then I heard the nurses at the station murmuring. Then someone from the kitchen stopped by and said, "We heard your son was here yesterday. Everything okay?" Word travels fast in nursing homes. Faster than light, faster than gossip, faster than a beating heart. People crave stories in places where days run together. And my story. Well, it was the freshest one they'd heard in months. "Did you know her son wants her money? He came demanding her will back. I heard she wrote him out of everything. Good for her. No, poor thing. Bless her heart." Everyone had an opinion. But only one opinion mattered. Mine. Later that afternoon, the administrator called me into his office. He looked uneasy, shuffling papers like they might shield him from what he had to say. "Mrs. Lawson," he began, "your son called earlier today. He wants to schedule another meeting with you." I stared at him calmly. "Did he say why?" The administrator hesitated. "He said it was urgent." Of course he did. Nothing motivates urgency like desperation. "I won't meet with him today," I said. "If he wants to speak to me again, he'll need to schedule it through my attorney." The administrator nodded slowly, clearly relieved he didn't have to mediate a second emotional hurricane. Back in my room, I found Alicia watering my marigold plant. She looked up at me with that warm smile of hers. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. Then I added, "I think he's scared." She set down the watering can and sat beside me. "People do ugly things when they're scared," she said. "Especially family." I sighed, feeling a heaviness I couldn't shake. "I don't know if I failed him somewhere," I whispered. "I raised him with everything I had. I tried to be gentle but strong. I tried to show him love without smothering. I thought if I raised him right, he'd grow into a man who valued more than money." Alicia shook her head. "Miss Loretta, children are not mirrors. You can pour love into them, but you can't control what they reflect back." Her words settled inside me, deep and true. Over the next week, Michael called the facility several times. Each time, the staff relayed the message: "Mrs. Lawson is not receiving unscheduled visits." Each time, he grew angrier. I knew because one of the receptionists whispered to me, "Your son got loud again." "I'm sorry, ma'am. We shut it down." On Thursday, he tried something new. He came in person. The receptionist called Alicia immediately. "He's in the lobby," she said urgently. "He's demanding to see her." My heart pounded slowly, like a drum muffled under blankets. But I didn't panic. I didn't tremble. I didn't feel small like before. I felt prepared. I felt steady. I felt done. Alicia stayed by my side as Michael stormed into my room. His expression wasn't anger this time. It was something worse, desperation mixed with guilt, tangled with entitlement. "Mom," he said, breathless. "Please. Can we talk? Really talk?" I nodded slowly. "Talk then." He closed the door behind him. "You can't leave everything to her," he said, voice breaking at the edges. "I'm your son. I'm your only son." "I know," I said softly. "Sit down, Michael." He sat, but he looked like he might fly apart at the seams. I didn't realize," he said quietly. "I didn't know you were hurting. Or lonely. I thought you'd be okay here." "I wasn't," I said. "And you didn't check." His eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I messed up. I really messed up. Mom, I need you. I need your help. Do you need me? I asked gently, or do you need my money? He froze. He didn't answer. But he didn't have to. When you needed me, I continued, I showed up. Even when I was tired. Even when I was hurting. Even when life pulled me thin. I showed up. That's what love is. He looked down at the floor, tears slipping from his eyes. You didn't show up for me, Michael. He whispered. I know. And love without showing up, I said softly, is just a word. He sobbed quietly, shoulders shaking. And for a moment, just a small, fleeting moment, I felt the old ache of wanting to comfort him, to pull him close, to hush his pain, to pretend everything was fixable. But mothers can't always fix what grown children break themselves. When he finally lifted his head, his cheeks wet, he whispered, Can you forgive me? I already did, I said gently. But forgiveness doesn't undo consequences. He swallowed hard. So, the will stays the same? Yes. He closed his eyes. It broke him. But it also set me free. Alicia placed her hand on my shoulder. I could feel her trembling too. The moment was heavy enough to split a heart in two. Michael stood slowly, wiping his eyes. He looked older than I remembered. Bitter. Tired. Frightened. Not because he lost the money, but because he realized he'd lost something far more precious. The kind of loss you can't buy back. Before he left, he whispered, Mom, is it too late for me to be your son again? I looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Then I said, It's never too late to be my son. But it is too late to undo what you did. You have to build what you broke, not expect me to hand it back. He nodded numbly and walked out. Not angry. Not shouting. Not defeated. Just hollow. Like a man who finally saw himself clearly. But the story wasn't over. Because the day after that conversation, something happened that none of us expected. Something that would force all of us, me, him, Alicia, into a truth we hadn't faced yet. A truth that would change everything. The day after Michael and I had that last, painful conversation, the morning felt unusually heavy. Not sad. Not dark. Just full. Like the air itself knew something was coming before I did. I woke early, long before breakfast, and sat by the window watching the sun come up. A slow, gentle light creeping across the sky, the kind that reminds you life moves forward whether you're ready or not. Alicia came in quietly, holding a warm cup of tea. She didn't smile like she usually did. Something in her face looked tired, worried, maybe even scared. What is it? I asked. She hesitated. Michael called the front desk. He's coming back today. My heart gave a slow, aching beat. Did he say why? She shook her head. No. He just said he needed to see you again. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel dread. I felt something else. Something like acceptance. I nodded and took my tea. Let him come. The morning passed slowly. I tried to eat breakfast but barely touched it. The other residents moved through the hallways, some laughing, some dozing, some wrapped in blankets watching old TV shows. Life went on around me, but I felt split between two worlds, the life I had lived with Michael, and the life I now lived without him. Around noon, a knock came at my door. I didn't need to look up. A mother knows the sound of her own child's footsteps, no matter how much time or bitterness has passed. Mom, can I come in? He asked quietly. His voice wasn't sharp this time. It didn't carry anger or demand. It carried something much heavier, something that weighed down every syllable. Yes, I said softly. Come in. Michael walked inside slowly, almost cautiously. His eyes were red, not the angry red I'd seen before, but the kind that comes from a long night of crying. He stood beside my bed, not too close, not too far, like a man unsure of his place. I didn't come to talk about the will, he said quietly. That made me look up. I know, I replied. He rubbed his forehead with trembling fingers. Can I sit? I nodded. He lowered himself into the chair beside me, the same chair he had once sat in as a boy when he brought me his school drawings or told me about some playground adventure. Only now he wasn't a boy. And the story he brought wasn't innocent. Mom, he whispered, voice cracking. I found out something yesterday. Something I didn't know how to tell you. My chest tightened. What is it? He swallowed hard, eyes glistening. Jasmine, she left me. The words hit the room like a cold wind. She packed her bags while I was here talking to you. She said she was tired. She said she didn't want to deal with my failures anymore. She said I was dragging her down. I watched his hands shake as he spoke. She took her money, her savings. She even took half the business funds, the ones I got us into trouble with. And she left. He looked up at me, broken in a way I had never seen before. I deserve it, he whispered. I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good son. I wasn't a good man. I reached out slowly and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. He folded both hands over mine and held on like someone holding the last piece of solid ground. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much I was losing until everything was gone. I squeezed his hand gently. Michael, there's something you need to understand. Pain doesn't excuse behavior, but it can explain it. He cried harder. I don't want your money, he whispered through tears. I don't want anything from you anymore. I just don't want to lose you too. And hearing my son finally say the one thing I had waited years to hear, broke something loose inside me. Something old and heavy. I slid my other hand over his and whispered, You haven't lost me, but we can't go back. We have to start from here. From truth. From humility. From healing. He nodded, tears dripping onto his shirt. Mom, I love you, he said, voice shaking. I haven't said that in years. Maybe I forgot how. Maybe I thought you didn't need to hear it. But you do. And I do. I love you. I closed my eyes for a long, trembling moment. Then I said the words that had lived in my heart since the day he was born. I love you too, Michael. I always have. Even when I didn't like you. I never stopped loving you. He let out a shaky laugh between tears. Yeah, I get that. We sat there together, holding hands, letting the silence fill the room in a way that felt warm instead of cold. Healing instead of empty. After a while he whispered, Mom, can I ask something? Not about money. Not about the will. Ask, I said. Would it be okay if I started visiting more? Not because I need something. Just because I miss you. My heart felt too full for my chest. Yes, I whispered. But not here. He pulled back, confused. What do you mean? I smiled softly. I mean, I'm going home. His eyes widened. Home. Mom, can you? With help, I said. With support. With people who care. He looked at Alicia, who had stepped inside quietly and stood by the door with a soft, emotional smile. You're moving out? He asked, stunned. Yes, I said. Alicia talked to the director. My health has improved. I've regained strength. And I want to spend my last years living, not waiting. Michael wiped his face. Where will you go? To an assisted living apartment, I said. Independent. Safe. My own space again. He nodded slowly, understanding settling across his face. Can I help you move? He asked softly. I hesitated for only a moment. Then I nodded. Yes, you can. He smiled through the tears, the first real smile I'd seen from him in years. Over the next weeks, he visited often. Not perfect. Not always on time. Not always knowing what to say. But he came. And every visit stitched a little more of our relationship back together. The day I moved out, Michael carried boxes to the car, sweating and complaining just like he used to when he helped with chores as a teenager. Alicia hugged me so tight I thought my bones might crack. And I cried, not because I was sad, but because I finally felt like I had a life again. Months later, sitting in my cozy new apartment with my marigold plant blooming on the windowsill, I rewrote my will one more time. Not out of anger. Not out of guilt. Not out of fear. Out of truth. I left something for Alicia, because love that shows up deserves to be honored. And I left something for Michael, not everything, but enough to show him he was still my son. But the most important thing wasn't the money. It was the letter I attached to the will. A letter he would read long after I'm gone. A letter that said, "Michael, love is rebuilt in moments, not miracles. You lost me for a while. But you found me again. And that is worth more than anything I could leave you." Life didn't give us a perfect ending, but it gave us a real one. And sometimes, that's more than enough.